this remake is not real. It's not real. It's too good. It's too amazing. It's too incredible. This is the closest we'll get to the perfect Paper Mario game, unless they make a new Paper Mario game in this style. Intelligence Systems really knocked it out of the park with this one. And I've only played 2 chapters so far. Like, I finished chapter 2, and it's just incredible. I played the original game multiple times, so I already know what to expect from Thousand Year Door. And they fixed so many of these little nitpicks and little issues and things that I've had with the original game. It just made it even better. Like, they took my favorite game of all time and made it even better. I am just so happy about this. And before we dive into this deeper, I just wanted to say sorry that my voice sounds a little off. I have a cold right now, and I feel a little off with my throat and my voice and everything, but I'm okay, and I'm able to record this, so yeah. But this remake is just doing so much. I feel like the best way to describe this is Thousand Year Door, but if they made it with the level of detail and polish that Origami King has. While I am critical of Origami King in certain aspects, like the character design restrictions and the battle system, I still do really like Origami King. And part of the reason for that is because there's just a high level of detail and attention to detail in a lot of things in the game when it comes to like expressions and different locations, different things in the game. Like, they really make the Mushroom Kingdom feel like a living and breathing world. And while it did kind of feel like that in the original version of Thousand Year Door, they went all out here. Like, it is just incredible, like, how much they've added to this. Like, it's still the same story as the original, it's still very similar. The battle system, still the same. It's still the same Thousand Year Door that you know and love. But they just put so much effort into modernizing it. It's just absolutely amazing. The first thing that stuck out to me when I was playing the game is the overworld gameplay, because that was definitely a major improvement over the original. I thought it was fine in the original game, but I feel like the highlight in the original game was definitely the battle system. But they definitely improved the overworld gameplay quite a lot. Like, even though it's 30 FPS, the overworld gameplay actually feels a bit more smooth, and it feels like you have a bit more control over like how you move around now, which is great. It just feels pretty great in general. And it kind of seems like they put a lot of the physics from Origami King in this game. Since when you move around, it kind of moves around in a similar way to that game, but mixed with all of the mechanics and elements that you have from the original Thousand Year Door. Everything is there, and it feels just as good, if not better, than it did in the original game. So it's really kind of mixing those elements from the modern Paper Mario games with Thousand Year Door. And another thing is the battle system. The battle system feels just as good as it did in the original game. Like, the super guard timing is slightly more lenient than it was in the original. I think it's technically 1/3 more lenient from what I've heard. In guarding, I feel like is pretty lenient, but I feel like the level of difficulty is about the same as the original game. Really the only ways they've made this game easier is just making the parts that were a little tedious and frustrating less tedious and frustrating. And I think that's a good thing, because some of those tedious and frustrating moments were really the only nitpicks I've had about the original game. One thing that comes to mind is the Great Tree. The Great Tree feels significantly better than it did in the original game. That was the only part of the original game that I was kind of iffy about and didn't really like that much. Chapter 2 was my least favorite chapter in the original game, but in the remake, it was actually fun. It was actually really fun, because they significantly improved the puny AI, and a lot of the puzzles and areas felt less tedious, thanks to the modern physics and a lot of like the refinements they've made to the system overall. So it just feels much more refined and much more fun than it did in the original game. And not to mention all of the different kind of visual upgrades that they did to this game. Because it looks absolutely beautiful. This is easily the best looking Paper Mario game. Like, even better than Origami King. I liked how Origami King looked, but I had a few problems with its style. Like, well, I don't like to go on about how, like, the overly papery look is in the Paper Mario series. I feel like I do like how Thousand Year Door in the classic games have kind of more cartoony textures, but the way they kind of incorporated Thousand Year Door into like a more papery style looks absolutely incredible. Like, the original game, I think looked great, but looked a bit flat in some areas. I mean, I don't mean flat like like Paper Mario, paper flat, but like kind of like a bit static, I would say. Like, the lighting wasn't dynamic, and it did seem kind of dark in some areas that should have been like kind of dynamic in its lighting. But in the remake, it just looks so much better. Like, it takes that original vision and kind of mixes it with some of the ideas from Color Splash and Origami King, gives it like a little bit of a papery look to it, and then also just makes the lighting absolutely beautiful. Like, it just looks incredible overall. This is like the perfect way of having the paper aesthetic. Like, where it's not too overly papery, where it's not affecting the story, but still looks papery and just looks very visually appealing. And I kind of like how there's like a little detail on a lot of things. Like, some of the things in the environment are actually realistic. Like some of the puddles and Rogueport, or the big bloopers, ink, as well as like some of the stage hazards, like some buckets and things look a little realistic. And I think that's a nice detail. I really like how that looks overall. And I love the fact that they kept the original art style here. I know I've gushed about that previously on other videos, but it looks great. And they kind of expanded upon that style, since they added so many new animations and expressions that look absolutely beautiful and definitely add to this game. I know Origami King had a lot of expressions, but it did look a bit stiff, because it kind of was emulating like a stop motion-esque like animation style. But I really like how these animations look in a more fluid style. Like, it looks incredible, and this is definitely one of the most expressive Mario games ever. Like, up there with Luigi's Mansion 3, Mario Strikers Battle League. Even though that game wasn't that great, it did look great in terms of animations. Super Mario Bros. Wonder, and the Mario plus Rabbids games. This game is definitely up there. This game is definitely pretty close. And it's just pretty great in general. I also like some of the little quality of life updates they did. Like, the menu, you can now like swap out partners a little quickly with the partner ring. I know you could swap out partners pretty quickly in the original game, but I feel like not having the whole menu open reduces lag a little bit, and you only have to press like one button to get another partner. So it's pretty useful. And there's also things like the items. You can hold 15 items now, and that is great. I really like the fact that you can do that now. And yeah, I also like that they've added a couple things as well. They've even added like more like tutorials. I mean, they weren't really like invasive tutorials. Like, if you've played the game before, you won't really mind. It will only take like 30 seconds at most. Like, there's one in Petal Meadows where you run into like a Koopa, and it shows you about like the stage hazards, and like I think it was like, yeah, stage hazards, and kind of like the audience members throwing stuff at you, which I thought was helpful for like new players. and it really only takes like 30 seconds if you played the game before, and it's cool. It's like a little like scripted scene as well, which is pretty cute. And it definitely seems like they've improved quite a lot about this. They've even added like new pipes in certain areas. Like even in chapter 1, like in Hooktail's castle, they've added like little like conveniences like that, like little pipes and little things. It just feels so much better than it did in the original game. Like I can't believe they've improved it this much. And the music, oh, the music is definitely another highlight. Each area has its own battle theme. Each of the partners have their own theme, for the partners that didn't have themes in the original, because I know Flurry and Mouse had themes in the original game, but all the partners do. Also little moments too, like before you open the chests, like where you get the curse, like that has a little song too, that reminds me of Origami King a little bit. Like it's just really cool how they're fleshing this game out with so much music. You could tell that like some of the composers from Origami King returned to compose this, and it's just incredible. When I was looking through the staff credits, I was a little surprised that that one composer who composed both Thousand Year Door and Origami King didn't return, but one of the composers who composed both Color Splash and Origami King did return, and I think they might have been the person who was responsible for the multiple battle themes in Origami King. So that's probably why we got it here, and it's just really great overall. Like this soundtrack sounds great when like you listen to it on its own. It is just incredible. Some of the songs that I didn't even care for in the original game even sound better in this remake. And even if you don't like some of these new tunes, you could actually buy a badge called Nostalgic Tunes and turn that on if you want to listen to the original music, which I think is great. I think it's great that they have that option there. So if you want to listen to the original music, that's there for you, which I think is really cool. And it even looks like a little GameCube too, which is really cute. And yeah, they just have like so much attention to detail here. Like even with like the battle themes, like there's also like variations of the variations. Like there's like a thinking theme if you're like idle too long in the battle, kind of like Origami King's thinking themes. So it is just incredible. Like so far, I absolutely recommend this remake as someone who's played Thousand Year Door multiple times. And also, I recommend this to people who have played the original Thousand Year Door, because this is an excellent way of replaying it. This actually feels kind of fresh if you have played the original game. Like there's actually like it still feels like the same game as the original, but it feels like an enhancement at the same time. You feel like you're still getting something out of this, which is like honestly the perfect outcome for a remake. Like this, I would say this is one of the best Nintendo remakes ever. I would say, yeah, I'm definitely biased because I'm a Paper Mario fan, but like just like look at the reviews. Like it scored higher than the original game, and there's a reason for that. It's just such a great remake across the board, and I definitely recommend checking it out so far. But I will do a full review of this pretty soon, so stay tuned for that. But yeah, anyways, thank you guys for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe for more, and make sure to check out my Discord server and Twitter if you want to. Goodbye.